The Message of Viktor Frankl. On September 2, 1997, one of the truly great men of this century died at the age of 92. I have just written this and already have a doubt. I do not know if the Austrian Jewish Dr. Viktor Frankl really belonged to this century. For he only lived to give back to men what the 20th century had taken from them, and he could not do so if he were not, at a time when everyone prides themselves on being men of their time, someone much greater than the century. Viktor Emil Frankl, born in Vienna on March 26, 1905, was great in the three dimensions by which one man can measure another: intelligence, courage, and love for others. But he was even greater, in that dimension that only God can measure, in fidelity to the meaning of existence, to the mission of the human being on earth. A man of science, a neurologist and psychiatrist, it was not study that revealed to him this meaning. It was the fearsome experience of the concentration camp. Millions went through this experience, but Frankl did not emerge from it burdened with resentment and bitterness. He left the hell of their science carrying with him the most beautiful message of hope that the science of the soul has given to men in this century. What made this singular miracle possible was the timely confluence of a personal decision and the surrounding facts. The personal decision: Frankl entered the camp, firmly determined to preserve the integrity of his soul, not to let his spirit be crushed by the tormentors of his body. The surrounding facts: Frankl observed that, of all the prisoners, those who best preserved self-control and sanity were those who had a strong sense of duty, mission, and obligation. The obligation could be to a religious faith. The believing prisoner, with his eyes turned toward divine judgment, rose above the miseries of the moment. It could be to a political, social, or cultural cause. Humiliations and torments became steps on the path to victory. It could be, above all, to an individual human being, the object of love and care. Those who had relatives outside the camp were kept alive by the hope of reunion. Whatever the mission to be fulfilled, it transfigured the situation, infusing a meaning into the present. This sense of duty was the concrete manifestation of love, the love by which a man frees himself from his external and internal prison, moving toward that which makes him greater than himself. The meaning of life, Frankl concluded, was the secret of the strength of some men, while others, deprived of a reason to endure external suffering, were tormented from within by a tyrant even more insidious than Hitler, the feeling of living in absurd futility. Frankl had three reasons to live: his faith, his vocation, and the hope of finding his wife again. Where so many had lost everything, Frankl not only regained his life, but something greater than life. After liberation, despite not finding his wife, he found his profession again as the director of the Vienna Polyclinic Hospital and a new meaning for life. Thus, he records in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, one of the inner experiences that led him to the discovery of this new meaning. A thought pierced me: for the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it had been sung by so many poets, proclaimed as the ultimate truth by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought have to convey: the salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world can still know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved. In a state of profound desolation, when a man can no longer express himself in positive action, when his only achievement may consist in enduring his sufferings in the right way, an honorable way, in such a condition, man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, find fulfillment. For the first time in my life, I was able to understand the words, "The angels are immersed in the perpetual contemplation of an infinite glory." Frankl transformed this discovery into a scientific concept, that of noogenic diseases. Noogenic means emanating from the spirit. In addition to the somatic and psychic causes of human suffering, it was necessary to recognize a suffering of properly spiritual origin, born from the experience of the absurd, from the loss of the meaning of life. Man, he said, can endure everything, except the lack of meaning. From Frankl's reflections on the experience of the absurd, one of the most impressive systems of therapy created in the century of psychologists was born: logotherapy, or discourse therapy, a set of logical schemes used to dismantle the subterfuges with which the diseased mind seeks to evade the decisive question, the search for meaning. But meaning would have no healing power if it were merely an invented hope. The mind could not find within itself the solution to its ills, for the simple reason that its ailment consists in being closed within itself, without openness to what is superior to it. Instead of creating meaning, the mind must submit to it once found. Meaning does not have to be shaped by the mind, but the mind by meaning. The meaning of life, Frankl emphasizes, is an ontological reality, not a cultural creation. Frankl gives no philosophical proof of this assertion, but the very path of logotherapeutic healing provides each patient with unequivocal evidence of the objectivity of the meaning of their life. The meaning of life simply exists, it is only a matter of finding it. Universal in its value, individual in its content, the meaning of life is found through a tenacious investigation in which the patient, with the help of the therapist, seeks an answer to the following question: what must I do that cannot be done by anyone, absolutely anyone except myself? The imminent duty of each life then arises as an imposition of the very structure of human existence. No man invents the meaning of his life, each one is, so to speak, surrounded and cornered by the meaning of their own life. This demarcates and fixes at a specific point in space and time the center of their personal reality, from whose vision emerges, clear and inexorable, but only visible from within, the duty to fulfill. Instead of dissolving human individuality into its elements, through tedious analyses that risk getting lost in irrelevant details, logotherapy seeks to consolidate and fix the patient immediately at the central point of their being, which is, and not coincidentally, also the highest point. This is why it is useless to seek theoretical proofs of the meaning of life. It is not a uniform maxim, valid for all, it is the imminent obligation that each one has to transcend themselves. To discuss the meaning of life without realizing it would be to deny it, and once we begin to realize it, it is no longer necessary to discuss it, because it imposes itself with an evidence that even the most cynical mind would be ashamed to deny. Logotherapy has an impressive record of clinical success. However, more significant than its medical applications may be the function it has played and plays, the mission it fulfills, in the panorama of modern culture. In a century that did everything to depress the value of human consciousness, to reduce it to an epiphenomenon of social, biological, linguistic causes, etc., Frankl swam against the current and no one could stop him. No one, not the guards of the camp nor the countless hosts of his intellectual antipodes, the enemies of consciousness. Frankl bet on the meaning of life and on the cognitive power of the individual mind. He bet on the two underdogs of the philosophical race of the 20th century, scorned by psychoanalysts, Marxists, pragmatists, semioticians, structuralists, deconstructionists, by the whole pompous procession of blind leading the blind into the abyss. He bet and won. The theory of logotherapy bravely withstood all objections, its practice imposed itself in numerous countries as the only admissible treatment for the numerous cases in which the human soul is not oppressed by childish fantasies but by the reality of life. For this reason, Frankl's cultural critique, an integral part of a work where the doctor and the thinker are never separated for a moment, has a deeper reach than all its competitors. From his privileged observation post, he could see what no intellectual of this century wanted to see, the secret alliance between materialistic, progressive, democratic, scientistic culture, and Nazi barbarism. An alliance, yes. Would it be just a coincidence that the century most committed to denying the autonomy and value of consciousness in theories was also the most committed to creating mechanisms to direct it, oppress it, and annihilate it in practice? Addressing a North American university audience, Viktor Frankl pronounced these words where lucidity is allied with an uncommon intellectual courage. It was not just a few ministries in Berlin that invented the gas chambers of Majdanek, Auschwitz, Treblinka. They were prepared in the offices and classrooms of nihilistic scientists and philosophers, among whom were and are some Anglo-Saxon thinkers laureates of the Nobel Prize. If human life is nothing but the insignificant accidental product of some protein molecules, it matters little that a psychopath is eliminated as useless and that a few more inferior peoples are added to the psychopath. All this is nothing but logical and consistent reasoning. With statements of this kind, he grabbed by the throat the proud intellectuals denouncing barbarism and returned to them their discourse of accusation, unmasking the suicidal futility of theories that do not assume responsibility for their historical consequences. For the evil of the world does not come only from below, from the economic, political, and military causes that the academic alliance of pedantry with simplism consecrated as explanations for everything. It comes from above, from the human spirit that accepts or rejects the meaning of life and thus determines, sometimes with tragic inconsequence, the destiny of future generations. Frankl was Jewish, as were some of the creators of those materialistic and dehumanizing doctrines that inadvertently prepared the way for Auschwitz and Treblinka. If he could see what they did not see, it was because he remained faithful to the inner freedom that is the old message of meaning in search of man. If you accept me, Israel, I am your God. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This text was taken from the article, The Message of Viktor Frankl, written by philosopher Olavo de Carvalho in 1997.